All right, let's get right into it. We're in this weird moment where the biggest threat to what's true isn't some elaborate fake. No, it's something real, just used in exactly the wrong way. So today, we're going to unpack this idea of a context engine and explore the strange new world where real things can tell the most powerful lies.
And this quote, this really gets to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? It's a total paradox. I mean, think about that for a second. Every single piece of information can pass a fact check, you can prove it's authentic, and yet the story that all those pieces tell you can be completely and utterly false. So how on earth is that even possible?
Well, this image is a perfect way to visualize it. Just imagine each one of these puzzle pieces is a verified, 100% real fact. But when you put them all together, what do you get? A picture of a man about to walk right off a cliff. This is what the source material calls misplaced truth. It's where totally genuine facts are just arranged to create a false and often really dangerous reality. It shows us that checking the individual pieces, that's just not going to cut it anymore.
Okay, so let's dig into how this actually works. The most damaging kinds of manipulation we see today, they don't rely on someone just making stuff up out of thin air. Nope. They rely on something way more subtle and, honestly, way smarter. Composition.
And that's the real game changer here. You know, the old lies were about faking things. A photoshopped image, a synthesized voice, a forged document. The new lies? They're about taking a real photo from 10 years ago, a real quote from a politician but without the question they were answering, a real statistic without its context. The parts are authentic, but they're assembled into a lie.
So this leads us to a massive problem. All the tools we've built to protect ourselves from misinformation, well, they're looking for the wrong thing. They're basically stuck in the past, right? They're hunting for forgeries while this entirely new threat just waltzes right by them.
And what's so fascinating here is how this visualizes what's called the silo trap. Our systems check the video. Is it authentic? Yep. They check the audio. Is it real? Yep. They check the text. Is it accurate? Yep. Everything gets a green check mark. Pass, pass, pass. But the story itself is completely broken because the context, the timing, the sequence, the relationship between all those real pieces is wrong.
And look, this isn't some abstract theory. This happens all the time. In politics, you see real clips of a candidate used totally out of context to make them look bad. During conflicts, you see real but old photos of damage being shared to create panic right now. In finance, a string of true but totally jumbled up facts about a company can literally cause a market panic. In every single one of these cases, all the content was real.
So the pattern is just crystal clear, isn't it? The deception isn't happening inside the content. It's happening in the empty spaces between the pieces of content. It's a failure of seeing the whole picture because we're all so focused on making sure each little puzzle piece is genuine.
All right, so if the problem is broken context, it stands to reason that the solution has to be a system that can put that context back together. And this brings us to the big idea from the source, something called the Integrated Context Engine, or ICE for short.
You know, the core principle behind IC is actually a pretty simple insight, and it's borrowed from the world of marketing, of all places. Think about it. Back in the day, companies would run a TV ad, a radio ad, and a print ad that all said different things, and it just confused customers. The solution was integrated marketing. The same principle applies here. Fragmented verification tools just confuse us. The solution is to integrate. Stop checking things in isolation.
And here's that key difference again, laid out visually. On the left, you've got fabrication. Fake parts making a fake whole. That's the threat we thought we were fighting. But on the right, you have composition. Real parts, just assembled in the wrong way. This is the new threat, and it's so much more sophisticated. We're moving beyond deepfakes and into the era of deep contextual manipulation.
I mean, this slide just nails the paradigm shift. On the left, you have our current siloed systems. They look at all the pieces and they say, well, nothing here is technically fake. But on the right, the integrated context engine, it doesn't just look at the pieces. It tries to reconstruct the whole event, and its conclusion is totally different. It concludes, this narrative is unstable. It's not saying true or false. It's making a judgment about coherence.
So that's the key right there. The job of an engine like ICE isn't to verify individual bits and pieces. Its primary job is to reconstruct the entire event it's supposed to represent. It's asking, does the text match the location in the video? Does the audio make sense with the timestamp? Does the whole sequence tell a story that holds together? It's computing what the source calls event coherence.
So what exactly is event coherence? Well, it's just the structural consistency of all an event's parts.
The best analogy is probably air traffic control. Right? An air traffic controller doesn't decide where a plane should be going. They just make sure two planes don't try to occupy the same space at the same time. In the same way, ICE would just make sure the components of a reported event don't fundamentally contradict each other.
Okay, so this all leads to a really important question. If a system like this is so necessary and the tech for it more or less exists, why in the world don't we have one? Well, the barrier, as it turns out, isn't a technical one. It's all about incentives.
Right? It's the question that's probably been on your mind this whole time. We have the technology to do this kind of analysis. The big social media platforms have all the data they could ever need to do it, so what's the holdup? Why are we still so exposed?
The answer is kind of brutally simple. It's the business model. Platforms are optimized for one thing above all else: engagement, which leads to scale. An engine like ICE is designed to do the opposite, to introduce friction, to slow down narratives that are incoherent. That works directly against their core metrics. And maybe even more important, building this would force them to take responsibility. It would make them accountable.
This incentive triangle really lays out the conflict perfectly. If you look at it, you see that platforms are completely driven by that bottom left corner, growth and scale. But an engine like ICE is designed to optimize for the top corner, public stability. As the source material points out, there's just no natural built-in profit motive for a company to build a system that deliberately slows down its own engagement machine.
And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? The two goals are fundamentally at odds. One system is trying to create stability, the other is trying to create scale. And as long as that basic conflict exists, the market is probably not going to produce the solution all by itself.
So where does that leave us? Where do we go from here? Well, the idea of an integrated context engine represents a really profound shift in how we think about managing our online world. It's about moving beyond the reactive stuff we've been trying so far.
This shows the evolution of our thinking really clearly. We started with moderation, basically asking, did this post break a rule? Then we got a little smarter and moved to verification, asking, is this piece of content true or false? The next step, context stabilization, asks a much deeper, more fundamental question. Is this overall narrative making our shared reality unstable?
And what this all boils down to is a massive change in philosophy. We have to move away from this impossible task of policing billions of individual pieces of content. Instead, we need to think about managing the very infrastructure that carries all that information. It's like shifting from being a frantic referee trying to call every foul on the game to being the architect who designed the stadium in the first place.
And that leaves us with this final and honestly pretty heavy thought. The technology for an engine like this, it's not science fiction. It can be built. But the very act of building it forces us to answer a question that's way more political and social than it is technical. Who exactly do we trust to build and manage the systems that will, in effect, design our reality?